On topic, on topic, on topic, on topic. Wait a minute, thank you. Thanks everybody for coming out.
The mayor has had countless opportunities to rid his administration of those who have been alleged time and again to engage in corruption. And yet at seemingly every opportunity, he chooses to keep them close. And that says something about the style of leadership that he wants to practice in this city.
Welcome to NY1's Off Topic on Politics. I'm NY1 investigative reporter Courtney Gross. Mayor Eric Adams is trying to resuscitate his re-election campaign after those big indictments last week. Meanwhile, Zohran Mamdani met with Hakeem Jeffries again this week, but no endorsement followed that meeting. We will catch you up on the race for mayor. And then after that, President Trump is threatening cities like New York to bring in the National Guard. More patrols potentially here in the 5 boroughs. How is Governor Kathy Hochul responding? We'll also get to that. And joining me as usual, Bobby Cuza.
Hey, Courtney. Happy end of summer.
Happy end of summer. This is our end of summer episode. And for the occasion, me and Bernadette Hogan, or that's just not even right, Bernadette Hogan and I.
God, and you were an English major, weren't you?
I wasn't. I was a journalism and politics major.
Oh. Well, I was an English major, so anyway.
We wore matching outfits today.
Because we're Irish girls, and we're trying to represent the culture. I mean, Courtney copied me.
I'm technically more German than Irish, but she can
Okay, sprechen Sie
go
Deutsch.
with that. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's just jump right into it. Like Bobby mentioned, it is our end of summer episode. Some people are just checking in after they've been away at the beach or wherever they were vacationing or not vacationing this summer. And so much of the campaign narrative for the last couple of weeks has been about these indictments. We obviously talked about it on last week's episode, Ingrid Lewis-Martin getting indicted. 4 different indictments from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Jesse Hamilton, others, 7 people in total. And as you heard at the beginning of this episode, Mayor Eric Adams does not want to talk about it anymore. He had a big press conference after our episode taped last week on Friday, addressing all the questions, but not backing away from Ingrid at all, sticking by her side, calling her a sister, saying he loves her, saying due process, people are entitled to due process in this country. But wasn't out there saying, oh, we should look for corruption in City Hall.
Right. He said he didn't want to engage in hypotheticals to some degree. I think the Post asked him, well, what would happen if this wasn't Ingrid Lewis-Martin? It was just another aide that was accused of what is detailed in this indictment. And the mayor said, I'm not talking about something like that. So, you know, I mean, he's continuing to defend and speak highly of these aides. And that just furthers this story that he has surrounded himself with people that are accused of problematic things, and it harkens back to what happened last fall with his own indictment that's not been dismissed.
Can we use that Eric Adams soundbite as like a promo for the Off Topic?
Oh, yeah.
Right? We should. It should be in every single episode.
On topic.
Yeah.
And was that directed
That's
at you?
why we're here, to talk
was
about off-topic topics that he doesn't want to talk about.
It was, I asked the first question asking about Ingrid, and then colleagues at the City and the Daily News followed up, and he just kept on getting more and more pissed, honestly, because we were all asking the same question: is Ingrid Lewis-Martin still volunteering for your campaign? Simple question. Just give us an answer.
And at one point, he just answered a totally different. He gave a response that was not even a response to the question about Ingrid. Right?
I doubled up the questions for him. So I like to do that when I'm with the mayors. I ask 2 questions.
It's one of her things.
Because
then you chased him afterwards.
I did chase him after. Well, chase is maybe an exaggeration.
Like a bloodhound.
I stayed there and watched him take pictures, and then I just
she
casually went to the mayor like, hey, what's up with this? Like, why can't you just answer the question? Very, like, you know, noted for decades, like, just nonchalantly, like, hey, what's up? You know, just answer the question. And then he got real mad.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, why can't you just answer the question?
Listen. Last week, I spoke about the case. That's a wrap.
Yeah, but
I got a campaign to run. I don't have speak to her attorney. Speak to her. That's a wrap. It's over.
But it's your campaign. Why can't you just say whether or not she's a volunteer?
I took my time out, so I didn't do this.
You're the mayor. You have to take time to talk to the press as you run for re-election.
Hold on. What is that? Tell me, where's that written?
You are the mayor of the city of New York. New Yorkers elected you. Don't you think you are responsible in a democracy to take questions from the press?
You said I have to. You're a for-profit business. Are you a non-profit business? Are you a nonprofit business?
We're a for-profit business.
You're a for-profit business. I stood out here, did an announcement. I did an announcement the other day. You're a for-profit business. Your business is to make profits. So don't say I have to answer questions. I did. I answered your question last week, and I'm not going into that anymore. Let a lawyer, and she could talk about that. I got to run my campaign.
He got mad when you said you have to answer
Yeah.
these questions.
Well, he got
He didn't like
demanding.
that.
This is the
She gets
idea,
that way.
I think, of the First Amendment. I mean, I guess they don't have to answer our questions. They're not. The Constitution does not say that they have to answer our
Right.
questions. Just that we are allowed to operate as a free press in a democratic society.
For now.
For now.
But it does further, though. It perpetuates the story. He refuses to answer whether or not a problematic aide accused of very serious crimes. He will not say whether or not she's still.
I want to
the
give the
campaign.
mayor credit, though. On Friday, the indictments happened on Thursday last week. And then on
turned
Friday, he basically had a press
A half-hour
availability
press conference.
just to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I guess he decided he wanted it to just be like a one-day story and then didn't
One
want
and
it to
done.
resurface
what he
again
said.
this week.
Yeah, he's already answered the questions. He doesn't need to answer the questions anymore. He's done a series of sit-downs since then with Bloomberg, ABC. I mean, he was in his sit-down with ABC recently. He did apologize, saying,
Sort
I'm
of.
sorry New Yorkers have to go through this or see these headlines.
Sure.
But he didn't say, I'm sorry that there's alleged corruption within my administration.
Right. And of course, the Winnie Greco story, which we don't have to rehash potatoes, right? I didn't even mean to do that one.
Which is hash.
Potato chips, hash, like hash
browns.
browns.
Well, that's a stretch,
I wasn't
Bobby.
even trying. The potato chip
I don't
puns
think
just
most
come.
people would have gotten that.
Okay,
But
well.
sure, okay.
Now he's embarrassed, Courtney. 30 years at this company, and now he's embarrassed.
Winnie Greco gave the reporter the money in a potato chip bag. And then the mayor, through his spokesman, immediately said
Right.
she'd been suspended from volunteering on the campaign when she didn't even really seem to have that prominent of a role in the campaign in the first place. Meanwhile, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, as far as we know, has not been terminated or whatever the word would be from the campaign.
I don't think that she's getting a paycheck from the campaign.
Right.
The
But-
reporting that's been out there is that she's organizing volunteers.
Right.
So, and one of the mayor's spokespeople for the campaign said that there's something like 80,000 volunteers, which seems like that's an exaggeration to me.
Well, I find it interesting that they're now putting a number on the number of volunteers because Mamdani started that, right? Like
Yeah.
he started saying, and I forget where it started, but he was like, we're up to X amount of volunteers. And it really was in like the 50, 60,000
There's no way that Mayor
range.
Adams has 80,000 volunteers.
It's also hard to verify. Like,
Right, it's
why do
hard
you
to
even-
verify.
Well, how many people, it may be like how many people have signed up for a newsletter or something like that.
Or again, I mean, in Mamdani's case, like who has signed up to petition
Yeah.
and whatnot and door knock. But I just find it interesting that these other candidates and their campaigns are now taking like pieces of Mamdani's campaign and their methodology and trying to see what fits for them.
Look, I mean, this is what a trend we've been seeing all summer is Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo on social media trying to,
Engage.
Mamdani,
Right.
which is impossible because his social media is really well done. But, you saw it. I mean, we were all texting about the Andrew Cuomo video this week about his campaign song where he's sitting there with his daughter and they're trying to figure out what the campaign song is. And, it doesn't hit the same way with Andrew Cuomo as it does with Mamdani. He seems somewhat out of place.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat him at his own game is the thing. And then also this past weekend, Mamdani did this scavenger hunt, which drew like thousands of people, I think,
Yeah.
where they, chased clues like all over the
Sunday.
city. And when I first heard about it, I was like, a scavenger hunt? That sounds like, it almost sounds kind of juvenile. Like, what do you do? But it actually gets people excited. Like you can't
had written out
doubt the
questions.
campaign at this point when they've been so effective at getting people excited and drawing people out, especially young people, and engaging them in a way that I don't think what other candidate could announce he's having a scavenger hunt on a Sunday and have people lining up to participate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just able to pull things off that the other candidates can't. So even when they try to mimic some of the strategies and techniques, it just doesn't quite hit the same way.
It's creative, I guess, is the point. But also, like, I mean, maybe Adams or Cuomo could, but would they be able to pack a Brooklyn Steel the way that Mamdani did in early May? Would they be able to, reach this level of excitement like JFK was for Americans in the 50s, right?
Are you saying Mamdani is JFK?
No, I'm just saying, like, I mean, if you were Irish Catholic, you had a picture of the Pope, you had a picture of JFK, and you had a picture of Jesus Christ on your wall. Like,
you do not have a picture of Zohran Mamdani.
No, I've got horses all over my place. But I guess my point is just like, where do you transcend to this level of stardom that, I mean, we really haven't seen this level, of excitement in the past. I mean, how long? Bobby's our sage here, but even like, on the gubernatorial end, like Andrew Cuomo, even at his height, he had, unbeatable numbers, but
it's not the same enthusiasm.
It's not the same enthusiasm. Yeah.
So Mamdani this week was trying to capitalize on the indictments from last week. You were there this Monday. It was a couple days ago where he was having a press conference. Was it on McGinnis Boulevard?
It was on the corner of Collier and McGinnis Boulevard, which is right where, so the McGinnis redesign, what they had wanted originally, the advocates, they wanted just single lanes on both sides of the street surrounded by a bike lane, all the way from the Pulaski Bridge to, I think, like the BQE, right? I should know this because I used to live in that neighborhood. But the McGinnis redesign changed allegedly when Ingrid Lewis-Martin was interceding on behalf of the Argento family that owns Broadway stages. This is what's detailed in the indictment. And the plan was changed where when you hit Collier, which is about like 10, maybe 15 blocks from the Pulaski Bridge, it becomes a 2-lane street again on both sides. And the argument was that businesses really opposed the single lane. Advocates say it made it more safe. And Mamdani basically was starting out the week reminding New Yorkers of these indictments, considering they happened at the end of the week. And he was, it's a tactic. You start out the news week criticizing your opponent. And Mamdani pledged to finish the redesign, or not finish it, but go back to the original 1 lane. And then he also pledged to do a couple of other busway redesigns that up in the Bronx that the Adams administration had started, but then did not complete.
Driven that area quite a lot. I do think that if it were 1 lane, it would have a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
It already has
going to the bridge, like it's
a ton of traffic, right? And the bridge opens up to 1 to 2, 3 lanes.
Yeah,
3 lanes.
Like 3 to 1 would be intense.
It's a tough sell because on one side it's all warehouses, gas stations, businesses. The other side is the residential portion of Greenpoint, and it is a busy artery because you're going from Queens into Brooklyn. And when I used to drive, it really was frustrating to be like, no one's using the bike lane. And this is what, after the redesign, I guess I really noticed it. I was like, no one's using this bike lane. We're going so slow, the lights. But that's just me as a driver and as a reporter trying to get to a story.
Yeah.
If that was your business and you were trying to get from Queens to Brooklyn every day.
And getting deliveries, et cetera.
That's the other problem the businesses raise. They say, listen, well, the bike lane, I still have to park in the bike lane to get, if I'm a grocery store or if I'm some other retail shop, I have to park in the bike lane to do my deliveries, and this just makes it harder.
So Mamdani's out there saying he's going to go back to the original redesign, and then later on in the week, he ended up meeting with Yvette Clarke, some clergy members, and Hakeem Jeffries, who's obviously the Democratic leader in the House.
Yeah.
Huge Democratic name. This is how many meetings that they've had so far?
This is twice.
Okay. Twice in person.
Yeah.
Twice in person at least. I believe there have been phone calls, but this, they had a one-on-one. This was more, Mamdani came to Hakeem Jeffries' turf. He came to his church. Black clergy leaders more on the moderate end. But, I might mention Hakeem Jeffries has been fighting against democratic socialism creeping into the state Senate and the assembly districts, those candidates. Jabari Brisport, state senator, a big ally of Zohran Mamdani. Hakeem Jeffries has tried to back opponents of Jabari Brisport, and he still won handily. So it's an interesting dynamic where Mamdani is coming to Jeffries' turf, and he's basically showcasing how he would run City Hall or, the prep work. But at the same time, Jeffries has to contend with the fact that the politics of that district has changed.
Well, to have changed meaning like has it gone so far to the left that he could potentially be at risk, where he could face a primary from somebody on the left. I mean, that's one of his considerations.
And that's just in New York.
Right. But then, I mean, obviously he has the entire congressional Democratic caucus to think about.
Which is what he's thinking about.
Right. And so, I mean, this is a conversation we've been having for weeks, is whether he doesn't want to embrace Mamdani too closely, because Mamdani could be toxic to the kind of swing state moderate voters in these swing districts that Democrats are trying to hold on to or to flip.
And that Republicans will seize on.
But we keep talking about this every week. It almost feels like Hakeem Jeffries is prolonging this in a way that it just seems so drawn out at this point. I mean, it's every week we're talking about
it's just not going to happen anymore.
That he's not going to endorse.
Yeah, that maybe he'll just stay out of it. I mean, which would be Kathy Hochul and Chuck Schumer. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
And I don't know if it matters.
It is summer too. People aren't paying attention. Like, people get back to work and school, et cetera, next week, and maybe that's when things will pick up.
I mean, the other thing is, it doesn't really matter to Zohran Mamdani, I don't think. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 months, but he could very easily win this election handily without having an endorsement from Chuck Schumer or from Kathy Hochul or from Hakeem Jeffries. I don't think he needs them, but it's just this weird optics when you have the top Democrats in New York not endorsing the Democratic nominee for mayor. And actually this week, I think I've heard both the mayor and former Governor Cuomo say, well, Mamdani's not a Democrat, right? Yeah. I think did the mayor say he's a communist? And I've heard Cuomo say he's not a Democrat, he's a socialist.
Well, Andrew Cuomo, and I think we're going to get to this soon, but as a little preview,
you can just get to it now.
Oh, thanks. Great. Give me the green light, Courtney. Andrew Cuomo on Wednesday. We're taping on Wednesday, he did a whole press conference and slideshow outlining
which is kind of his thing.
It is his thing. It harkens back
Everyone likes a good PowerPoint. Especially if you're over 60.
I'm like, I can't. I think
it was a good idea. I mean, we keep talking about Cuomo.
Wait, what happened?
Okay,
first?
Andrew Cuomo, he was at the Sheraton where he's been doing his press conferences, and he has a slideshow about Mamdani and his affiliation with the Democratic Socialists of America. And he said the press should be asking questions of Mamdani about the DSA's platform on a national level.
He's not wrong.
No, he is not. Agreed.
That's true.
And also, by the way, the press has, I've asked about his opposition to capitalism. Mamdani has said he doesn't believe in capitalism. He thinks it's a bad structure. He doesn't. Anyway, but Cuomo. Wait, what was your original question?
Do you want me to tell you what happened? What happened today? What was Cuomo's presentation about? What was the thrust of the event?
The thrust of the event.
There, what happened?
Right.
Well, he didn't have any proposal or anything.
No, there was no proposal.
Just to attack Mamdani.
It was like an expose saying, and I asked him about this after. I said, well, because he said if voters knew what Mamdani was all about, if they knew that he's listing the 10 pillars of Democratic Socialists of America, if he knew that they thought that police should be disarmed and shouldn't carry weapons, if he knew about the
jails being
abolished, about seizing the means of production, he said they wouldn't have voted for him. And I said, well, former governor, you lost by double digits to Zohran Mamdani. Are you saying that the voters in the primary, which tend to be more informed, right? Even though lower voter turnout, I was like, are you saying that voters didn't know who they were voting for and they're uninformed? And he was like, yes, I think that they didn't know. All they knew was free buses and all they knew was freeze the rent. And I was like, but you're just assuming that. How do you know that? How do we quantify that? And I think, and talking to a reporter after, if Andrew Cuomo had done this before he lost the primary, maybe it would have been more successful if he had come out guns a-blazing. But truly, I didn't hear a lot of this. He said socialism, but
there's no secret.
That's the other thing. I've been doing stories about Zohran Mamdani and his affiliation with the DSA since 2020.
Right. Yeah. No, there was no missing the fact that he was a DSA member
of the DSA. His Twitter handle says so. It says so. Democratic Socialist.
And it has the flower. And also it's okay, but then are we assuming voters in New York City are stupid? And
I was about to say,
know what I mean?
calling the voters, like basically implying that the voters are stupid is probably not the winning strategy.
And I was like, did you talk to anybody? Like, did you go and read a play-by-play? Hey, do you know that Mamdani agrees and is backed by this party? And he kind of gave an answer, but I was like, this is anecdotal.
I think if they knew that, they would have never done it. I think they knew freeze the rent, and they did not know that it was only for rent-stabilized apartments, and rent-stabilized apartments are only 30% of the total housing units.
But this is what Cuomo's been doing, right? For those who haven't been paying attention in the past few weeks, get everybody caught up.
Thank you, Bobby.
He's been doing, like, he does this
guy.
twice a week. He has these press conferences where he like recreates the COVID briefing where he has the PowerPoint and he sits at the table, and it seems like once or twice a week he's been doing this where he he'll announce like some sort of policy proposal, but then half of it is attacking Mamdani, right? He did it with legalizing prostitution.
Yes.
And with the police, it's kind of his new way of messaging. And I mean, we have seen him go on the attack much more than we did during the primary, right? I mean, the prostitution thing, the rent stabilized apartment that he wants Mamdani to move out of. It seems like if he's going down, and it would seem to be headed that way given the way that the polling is going.
Predictions over here.
I shouldn't be making any predictions.
No, you can wrap it up with the prediction.
No, but he's going down swinging, right? Like it seems like he's trying to
it's more of an
draw
effort.
Blood or on
and
his
the other
way
thing,
down.
really quick, like he was the governor for 3 terms. He resigned in the middle of his 3rd, right? Fourth.
Yeah, 4th. He was elected 3 times.
Yeah, elected 3 times. I'm not good at math. Thank you. Elected 3 times, resigned in the middle of his 4th. He was the governor. He knew about these programs. Like, he's somebody that can speak about legislation that was pending or passed in Albany, and he didn't choose to do that during the primary campaign, which I thought was really interesting. But now he's trying to do that and highlight this. But even today, Wednesday's programming with him, he said that Zohran Mamdani's platform is like Donald Trump and the Republicans' Project 2025. He said, Zohran 2025, it's the same thing, it's scary. And it's like, well, we've gone off 2 weeks now of Mamdani's campaign tying Cuomo to Andrew Cuomo tying Cuomo to Trump, saying that they're the same person because of reporting that the pair shared a phone call. Andrew Cuomo telling donors, according to Politico, that he knows the president very well. So Cuomo's trying to play the same game as Mamdani, but again, it's like...
Yeah, we'll see who ends up being effective. All right, we're going to take a short break for our podcast listeners. We'll be right back. For our YouTube listeners, stick with us. We will come back and talk about whether or not the National Guard, which is technically already here, will be expanding its troops here in the 5 boroughs.
I said, Mr. President, I can give you all the data you need to show that crime is down. When we say we've got this, Mr. President, and he would do this anywhere here or in Chicago or Washington, just to show a brazen abuse of power and brazen force.
So the Trump administration has sent National Guard troops and basically taken over the police department in Washington, D.C. And this week, and before this as well, the president has flirted with the idea, or threatened, we should probably say, bringing those National Guard troops here to New York. He's threatened Chicago, said that Chicago is worse than New York, so maybe he'll start there. Then he goes after Baltimore, and then he goes after New York City as well.
Right.
I mean, Bern, you were with Governor Hochul this week, where she said she has talked to him about this. I mean, is this going to happen? We should also note we already have National Guard troops here on the subway.
Right.
We've had National Guard deployments. I mean, remember, they were a prominent fixture even during COVID at these COVID sites. But since 2024, the governor and the mayor have collaborated to send National Guardsmen down, in addition to more MIPD and MTA police, to kind of serve as like figures of public safety to make people feel safer. Now,
it feels very symbolic on the subway.
It's more
not,
and it really
like
is.
They're out arresting people,
right? Because they actually can't. They don't have the jurisdiction. They can't pull a gun. They can't put a hand on you. They can't arrest. They're really just there. They're at Grand Central, Penn Station, near JFK. Like, Columbus Circle. They've kind of scaled back a little bit, but I was talking to the National Guard yesterday and they said we have about 1,000 people signed up for this volunteer mission. But that doesn't mean they're deployed, like 1,000 is deployed all at once. So it could be, another source said that you could have like 2 to 4, maybe up to 6 at any of these central locations. And also I might add, Governor Hochul deployed the National Guard to a majority of the upstate prisons during this massive Department of Corrections strike where the correctional officers went on strike, and there were, we've had now a bunch of people.
So
but this would be very different,
yeah,
right? If Donald Trump sends the National Guard to New York City.
DC.
Yeah, like Hochul has the ability to deploy New York National Guard. Donald Trump cannot federalize the New York National Guard or take over the NYPD. I think that's really maybe the distinction. He can take over the Washington D.C. police. But now it's a question
but only temporarily. It's like this weird distinction that Washington, D.C. has in its relationship with the national government versus the
rest of the country.
Yeah.
So it would be more similar maybe to like how the National Guard were sent into California.
But what's interesting is that Hochul said at that event in Harlem, right, on Tuesday, she said that she had this conversation with Trump over the weekend, and it's just funny to watch Hochul because she has this weird, she's kind of walking this fine line where she's
doesn't want to reveal too much.
No, but I was going to say she's like really leaning into this Rambo thing where she's like, I'm a fighter, I'm taking on Trump. She's always like talking really tough about Trump. But then she has this phone call where it almost sounds like she's kind of ingratiating herself to him.
Well,
and because
it's interesting you say that.
Because in the Oval Office on what was that Tuesday when Trump was asked about it, he talks about Kathy Hochul as if they're old friends. He's like, I get along with Kathy, and then he had this line where he said, if she wants it, I'll send troops, as if it's like her decision. It was almost like she pulled some mind trick on him, where now it's her decision and not his, when he had just been threatening to send them here.
Going on though with Hochul and Trump, like when I asked her about this when I sat down with her in a diner a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, you're a Democrat and you're a female Democratic governor, which Trump has called out or has made fun of certain female Democrat governors. I've just covering a governor, I've just noticed. And I was like, why do you almost enjoy like a good relationship with him? She's been invited to the Oval Office. She's been able to keep congestion pricing in place despite litigation, able to bring back a wind energy project that has been stalled or banned in all the other states except for New York. And she was like, I think because like, we're both New Yorkers and we both kind of have an understanding. She's like, I can pick up the phone and call him when I need. But I was like, but you're also out there saying we won't let Donald Trump infiltrate this state. Like actively saying things that other Democrats are saying that Donald Trump could think were insulting or offensive. I mean, also Governor Hochul just put out a brand new ad where it was like, don't mess with a mom from Buffalo. And then it's all antagonizing Trump or like anti the White House. And then Trump at the cabinet meeting goes, listen, I mean, I like Kathy, we get along, but I want this to be friendly.
I'd love to do it. If she'd like, I get along with Kathy. If she'd like to do that, I would do it. See, look, New York has difficulty like other, and I don't want to make this I want to make this like friendly. But the places we're talking about happen to be virtually all Democrat run.
Yeah.
And but going back to what Hochul said, I asked her, I was like, wait, so like how did the phone call go? What did you explain? And she said that she talked about New York's bail law, which she said she explained the nuances because New York.
We didn't even talk about that. That was the president signed an executive order this week that tries to strip Washington, D.C. of its cashless bail law. And then it also targeted cities that also have cashless bail on the books, basically saying that the attorney general needs to write a list and they could potentially lose federal funding. I mean, this isn't the first time he's threatened federal funding. Excuse me, this isn't the first time he's threatened that kind of federal funding for the NYPD or for the city before. I mean, I can recall going back to his first term where he would do the same thing, and more often than not, I recall, like the federal courts ended up, shutting it down.
Right, and just a few weeks ago, sanctuary cities, it was like much the same thing. I mean, he puts out these executive orders, which often end up getting shut down in the courts or not ever going anywhere. But that also doesn't mean that you can't take it seriously, right? Because we have seen that he does follow through on a lot of his threats.
It's a different court too than the first Trump administration.
But that just sort of set in motion this whole debate over cashless bail and whether we even have cashless bail in New York.
Right.
And Governor Hochul and aide Cuomo and the mayor all being asked about this. I mean, the president did say that New York had led the way in bail reform and made it, which is not isn't true because we don't want to get into a whole policy debate about bail reform.
New Jersey had cashless bail before New York State did.
Right.
But Andrew Cuomo signed it in 2019, and then it became a whole circus essentially with all the amendments. And Donald Trump pays attention to New York News, and the New York Post puts it on the cover of puts it on the wood every couple of weeks. A lot
talks about how
but Trump made it sound like New York is this poster child for for cashless bail and letting people out on the street who've committed violent crimes who then reoffend, and it's crime has run amok in New York, which is not exactly true, but it seemed like he was holding New York up as an example, and that was what this was sort of targeted at. And then Pam Bondi comes to New York, which you were with, Courtney, right?
But I was covering a press conference she was having with the Eastern District of New York, the U.S. attorney about a cartel. One of the top leaders of the Sinaloa cartel pleaded guilty in court and is going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
But then when she was here, she met with the NYPD, with Jessica Tisch. Yeah. And so it's like this weird dance where Kathy Hochul and the mayor and the NYPD are trying to convince the Trump administration, hey, crime is down here. Right. We've got this under control. You guys don't need to step in and, bring in the National Guard and take over our law enforcement apparatus.
And one could argue that Hochul has been successful because, again, I was shocked by Trump's response saying, yeah, I like Kathy. I get along with her. I want this to be friendly. But at the same time, New York is the poster child for this. But
even saying, hey, I'm going to target Chicago first. Chicago is worse. And what's interesting is also when you think about the size of the police departments of the other cities that he's calling out here, both Chicago and Baltimore. I mean, they're just a fraction of the size of the NYPD.
Right. And I think Pam Bondi, or the readout that I got from the NYPD after the Pam Bondi meeting was, look, we said that it was under control. I mean, the NYPD, there's no other police force like it. People wear hats and T-shirts, and there's patches all across the globe, right? And I think there might be a bit of a different level of consideration or respect, perhaps, especially if the federal government and the president is convinced that the current NYPD commissioner, Jessica Tisch, when she has a meeting with Pam Bondi, says, listen, we've got it, trust me.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Which is kind of again, going back to
control of crime in the city. Is it going to be a bunch of National Guardsmen? I mean, who may or may not be from New York, guardsmen and women, I should say, versus the NYPD.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that looks like. And then, I mean, the dynamic with Mayor Adams is fascinating because he's supposed to be the one who's allied with Trump. But I mean, we know Eric Adams doesn't want somebody coming in and taking over the NYPD. I mean, that's like his point of pride.
Just the protest and the resistance. I mean, I think that's even a bigger cause for concern for the Adams administration officials and Hochul and the NYPD is like they're in New York City would be such a bigger resistance, I think, to that than what we saw in D.C.
I also found it interesting that Nicole Malliotakis is a prominent Trump ally and the only Republican congressional member representing the 5 boroughs saying she didn't think that this was a good idea, which is fascinating too because, again, there's just like a different level of deference that Republicans especially have for the NYPD and the respect of these like men and women and their legacy. And it just adds like a different element to all of this.
I mean, it's so hard to see Trump even trying to do this. But on the other hand, I mean, he's followed through on a lot of things that I didn't think he was going to. I mean, I didn't think we'd see deportations on the level that we've seen. So who knows? Maybe he'll give it a shot.
That will do it for this week's episode. You can always watch us on Inside City Hall Monday through Friday at 7. And we love your feedback. Send us an email at yourstorynewyork1@charter.com. You can subscribe to Off Topic wherever you get your podcasts. Bern will probably sing. And if you like what you're hearing, leave a review. Thanks to our producer, Anthony Roman. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.